In August 1940, a 32-year-old poet and classical scholar declares war on the British Empire. He is Avraham Stern, or Yair, the name he takes after the commander of Jewish forces in the last stand against the Romans at Masada. He issues 18 principles of rebirth, among them conquest of the homeland and its historic borders by force, the complete ingathering of the world's Jews, and unifying the nation around his movement, the Fighters for the Freedom of Israel, or, as it was called in Hebrew, Lechi. It is an ambitious agenda for a group which only numbers in the dozens. But then, perhaps, it is astonishing that Stern, despite his magnetic personality, has any followers at all. France has fallen only months earlier. Britain, in what Churchill calls her finest hour, stands alone against the Nazi juggernaut. Palestine's Jews line up to offer their services to the British in common cause against Hitler. In the absence of public support, Lechi is forced to turn to bank robbery to fund its operations, earning its members public scorn as reckless thieves. In an effort to explain his group's mission, Stern focuses on imparting his ideology through underground broadcasts and his paper B'Machteret. However, Stern's public relations efforts are overshadowed when on January 3, 1942, a bank robbery runs afoul and 2 innocent Jews are killed. Lechi is blamed. Stern is further isolated when the British, knowing he's ready to make a deal with the devil to get Jews out of Europe, set up a sting whereby an agent claiming to represent Nazi ally Italy negotiates with Stern. Lechi historian Zev Golan writes,
"The British publicized the fiasco and increased the public's hatred of Stern, who is now said to be a supporter of the Axis."
Hoping to reverse the public's low opinion of Lechi, Stern turns to high-profile assassinations. An attempt on the life of 2 high-ranking British police officers goes awry when 3 lower-level officers, 2 of them Jews, are killed instead. Thanks to informers, the British soon arrest most of Stern's followers. Stern himself carries a suitcase which opens into a cot. He sleeps in bomb shelters and stairwells. His face is plastered on every lamppost by police, who offer a £1,000 reward, a small fortune. Natan Yellen-Moore, later to be a Lechi leader, said,
"I think that throughout history, nowhere in the world was anyone as isolated, so totally cut off as we were."
The song Stern had written in 1932, which becomes the anthem of Lechi, well describes the situation of its fighters. The end comes for Stern on February 12, 1942, when the British find him hiding in the apartment of Moshe and Tova Savorai. The official British version:
he was shot while trying to escape.
Much later, one of the detectives present in the room revealed that Stern was shot in cold blood.
"He should never have been murdered. That's what I call it. He was unarmed with no chance of escape."
After Stern's death, Lechi crumbles. It reaches the point where a 19-year-old, Joshua Cohen, hiding out in the orchards of Kfar Saba, keeps the movement alive. Lechi member Yitzhak Shamir, who 40 years later will become Prime Minister of Israel, escapes detention in August 1942 and searches out Cohen, who turns the movement over to him. Shamir begins rebuilding Lechi, one soldier at a time. In November 1943, Lechi gets a major boost when 20 of its fighters escape from the Latrun detention camp. One of them is Natan Yellen-Moore, who from then on runs Lechi along with Shamir and Dr. Israel Scheib, its intellectual leader, whose nom de guerre is Israel Eldad. Arrested in 1944, Eldad will write much of Lechi's propaganda from prison, encased in a full body cast after falling from a water pipe while trying to escape British pursuers.
In all my life, I was never as free and strong as during those first months of prison.
Eldad shares his prison with other Lechi members, 5 of whom will be tried in May and June of 1944 on charges of weapons possession, which the British have made a capital offence. Lechi uses the trials of the 5 to put the British in the dock. The first defendant, Tzvi Tavori, addresses the judges.
I received permission to carry the gun from the one regime I recognize in Eretz Israel. This is the Hebrew Freedom Fighters movement, which wishes to return the nation of Israel to its proper place among the nations.
After the trials, Joseph Heller writes in his book The Stern Gang.
It was no longer regarded as a terrorist sect, but as a real political movement.
Also, by 1944, it is so clear the Allies will be victorious that the much larger underground organization, the Irgun, from which Lechi had originally split, declares a revolt against Britain as well. Lechi's most famous operation takes place on November 6, 1944, with the assassination in Cairo of Lord Moyne, the highest British official in the Middle East. He had fought Jewish immigration to Palestine and had urged the Turks to tow the refugee ship Strumer out to sea, where over 700 Jewish passengers drowned. The assassination is carried out by 2 young Jews, 17-year-old Eliyahu Hakim and 22-year-old Eliyahu Bet Tzuri. Jewish official condemnation is swift. World Zionist leader Chaim Weizmann, who had lost his fighter pilot son in the war, said the shock was, quote, far more severe and numbing than that of the death of my own son. Hung in Egypt on March 22, 1945, Hakim and Bet Tzuri sing Hatekva on the gallows. Lechi's final action is on September 17, 1948. Count Folk Bernadotte, appointed UN mediator in the war between newly independent Israel and the invading Arab states, pushes his peace plan. It would internationalize Jerusalem, hand the Negev to the Arabs, and allow Arab refugees to return to their homes in Jewish-controlled territory. Lechi sets up a roadblock and shoots Bernadotte in his car. The shooter is Joshua Cohen, who at 19, while in hiding, kept the Lechi movement alive. While Bernadotte's killers are never tried, Ben-Gurion, a bitter foe of Lechi, uses the assassination to arrest its leaders and force Lechi to dismantle itself. In a final irony, Joshua Cohen, the man who shot Bernadotte, becomes a founder of kibbutz Sde Boker, to which Ben-Gurion would retire. In Sde Boker, Cohen and Ben-Gurion become neighbors and friends, with Cohen serving as his unofficial bodyguard. Their friendship is a symbol of the acceptance Lechi eventually wins for itself in the pantheon of those who fought for the freedom of Israel.
Amor le et